Good day, amigos. I'm making this series of videos about what is different in Mexico from the US. And let me be clear, this for me, I'm staying in Mazatlán with friends. And so I'm really talking about things that are different in Mexico, not tourist Mexico like Cancun or Puerto Vallarta or Cabo San Lucas. Those places are specifically designed to cater to people from the US and Canada and to a lesser extent Europe. I'm talking about Mexico where, real Mexicans live in major cities such as Mazatlán, which is the Mexico's largest Pacific port. Today I want to talk about payments. So the first thing to know is that the symbol we use for money, the dollar, what we call the dollar sign, is really a currency symbol. And Mexico uses the same symbol, but for them it means peso. So you might see something that says 200 with the dollar sign and you freak out because it's a lot. But remember, it's 200 pesos. As I speak today in middle March 2020, the peso is extremely weak, I think due to the COVID thing and all that, and the price of oil having fallen apart. But so it's trading like 22, 23 to 1. So it's easy to kind of divide by 20. But big differences in just walking around town and buying things, food, gasoline, those sorts of things are that Mexican people use a lot more cash than they do in the United States. I know a lot of people in the United States, especially younger people, that walk around with virtually no cash in their pocket. They just have a credit card or debit card, and they do everything with their card. That just won't work here. You can't do that. A lot of places, do not accept cards, especially small places. They simply don't accept cards. And it is not traditional to use cards for other purchases, which you sometimes can use a card, such as gasoline, which here is known as Gasolina. Mexicans just very infrequently use cards for gasoline. And when you do use a card, it's a pain in the butt because the person has to go find the machine, and it's going to take you an extra 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And we'll talk a little bit more about buying gasoline in a minute. So since you need cash, the question is where to get the cash. I mean, you can get the cash before you leave for Mexico if you have some idea how long you're going to be here and how much cash you're going to need. What I do is I typically do show up in Mexico with cash, with pesos. But I also, if I need cash, I tend to get it from ATM machines. Now, they're a little different here. In the U.S., at least in places I've lived in the U.S., Denver area right now, L.A. for a good portion of my adult life, you can't swing a cat without hitting an ATM machine. You certainly can here. There are plenty of ATM machines, but they aren't nearly as prevalent. Certainly banks, have ATM machines. They're typically available 24 hours. And a few large stores, there's a large hypermarket called Soriana. They sometimes have ATMs. And a few Oxxos, which is the sort of local version of 7-Eleven, will occasionally have an ATM machine, but often no. So when you get money from an ATM, get as many pesos as you can because the fees are fairly high. It can easily cost you 80 or 90 pesos to get cash from an ATM, which is, for $3 or $4. And it's usually the same no matter how many pesos you get, just like the U.S. So, get a lot of pesos. Typically, if you have a $300 limit on your card, you can typically get 5,000 pesos. They have some preset withdrawal limits. Almost all ATM machines support English or Spanish, but of course they default to Spanish. So get your cash. Things that people in the U.S. use cards for that they simply don't here very often. The biggest one is gasoline. There's essentially no self-service in Mexico, so you come up and somebody walks over, puts the gasoline. You don't have to get out of your car. He puts the gasoline in your car. They'll also check your oil. They'll check the pressure in your tires. It's sort of like the 50s in the U.S. And you are expected to tip them a small, depending on what they do. If they just put in the gasoline and collect your cash and give you change, then I expect, like 5 or 10 peso tip is 10 peso tip is good. If they're, checking your oil and putting air in your tires, I think you got to give them 20 or 30 pesos. I don't know how this works in their income at all, but they make change out of their pockets, which is fascinating. So that's a big difference. The other differences are, or some other differences in the use of cash, are that people tend to use cash at the grocery store. Not everybody, but they tend to use cash at the grocery store. And some merchants that accept cards can't accept cards outside Mexico. This is a limitation of their processor, and you simply can't use your card. Now, if you're in a tourist area, here in Mazatlán, it would be called the Golden Zone or the Dorado Zone or Zona Turista. Certainly everybody, pretty much takes cards. They all take U.S. cards. There's English everywhere. Yeah, it's no problem at all. But in real life, carry cash in your pocket. So next time I want to talk about, some other fun difference about Mexico. And let me just reiterate, this is my experience comparing Mazatlán to the area I live now, which is Denver, the Denver, Colorado area. It's possibly not true throughout Mexico, and it may not be your experience. But it is mine. I love being down here and look forward to making my next video. Ciao.